Welcome to the Real CP Show. I am your host, CP. Today's date is August the 8th, 2026. And the topic discussion that is beyond extremely not talked about enough, that also shows the hypocrisy-ness as well. And that is this particular former teacher over there in a certain section of a county in England, that she was a teacher and she'd be considered an Anglo woman, especially in America. And her deplorable deviantness toward this boy teen years ago. Keep that in mind. And because the rarity that these cases of eco showcasing are brought up, right? This is why it needs to be more of this, right? And it has to be more male victims, regardless in America, regardless in certain parts of England, regardless. It doesn't matter. It needs to be brought up more. And you have however politicalness or however enforcement, sectionality, or however person, the ones who do it and they minimize it, then they need to be called out on their sexism toward males. Yes, you can have some sexism from numbers of males who, in their little messed up mentality, once applies to, who have the feminist mentality. It's the irony, right? It's the paradoxical in this situation, right? So in this situation here, how many times have you heard about, oh my goodness, that young girl, she was that age bracket, and 20, 30, 40 years later, she's bringing suit to some guy, be it celebrity or some non-celebrity or some high valueness males, some high value political males. Oh my goodness, he sit there committed sexualness toward her 30, 40, 25, 40 some years ago. And I'm like this. But a male brings us something, oh, that happened about 2, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, or this woman that sexually harassed him. Oh, or how many times have we heard numbers of bad version teachers doing sexual deviant behavior toward these young boys and some girls in these classes, right? And you're like, hey, so are we gonna have more true conversations about this epidemicness of bad teachers doing these little bad devious things to these little boys in these little classes? Are we gonna have more conversations about that? This is what numbers of people do.
Nothing. I know nothing.
That's what numbers of people are doing. Certain numbers of males and certainly numbers of females doing supplies, because that's what they do. Then this system and this brilliancy have taught so many males to just look upon numbers of women in some generic way of some pedestalness, right? You must pedestalize numbers of women. And there are numbers of women who can't stand other women. Do you see how that game goes? There are numbers of women who look at other males and say, you silly little panacanas. They sit there back and use men every freaking day. I'm sitting there looking at stuff personally. When I observe numbers of males and the woman, you be like, okay, you can play that game of odd and hold all you want. We talk realistically, right? You look at some of these numbers of males, it's like, okay, that male, he signed up for that. And she bossing him around. I'm like, God dang. The confidence level of these numbers of males is below disaster. But again, in this system of supremacy, which is the most brilliant mental manipulation force that's ever existed, it has also allowed numbers of feminists, certain numbers of within certain predominant Anglo feminists, the ones predominantly, the ones who do it, and some other ones who want to be like certain numbers of women within the predominant culture, ones applies to. This all they have to do in general to get numbers of males' attention. What? You said they got to do what? Only? Yes. And you'll have males coming riding along like they riding in tanks, trying to help. Hey, what's going on? And how many males have lost their lives, including numbers of black males, by the way, as well, and some other cultures of males, jumping up inside another male's face without knowing what happened in a relationship. Interesting, you don't see the same thing reversed. Interesting. Just something to think about. So let's go ahead and share my screen on this. Let me make sure you can see this part. And there is so much conversation needs to be talked about on this. Too many numbers of male victims underage now and grown men right now that are victims right now of sexual deviantness by numbers of women. And it needs to be showcased and talked about and justified, right, by Harvard personnel and not allowed to be minimized. So you ain't going to minimize nothing about numbers if it's vice versa. Oh, they ain't going to let you minimize that. You have numbers of males that will take off some male's head. But you say, hey, are you going to do the same thing toward numbers of women who sexually deviate, sexual harass, sexual assaultness, rock young males, young boys? Are you going to do the same thing to them? No, quietness. Okay, so teacher, you mean this particular Anglo English teacher from England, a certain county of England, tied this boy, teen, to the bed before horrific act and screamed her husband's name. Yes, you heard that right. It said screamed her husband's name. Oh, see, a lot of main media, there's either other personnel, they ain't gonna talk about this. No, the people haven't even heard about these kind of stories. That's the problem as well. Look at this. Does that look like somebody? Does that look like a woman that sits there and is a caring person? She's about enlistment of helping out. Anyway, the point is that does she look like someone that's going to sit there and be for humanity? I don't think so. Matter of fact, she may sit there and sell out other women, right? She may be pretend feminist and she'll sell other women. Oh, that's another whole topic in itself. But let's continue. A teacher has been convicted of tying a teen, to her bed and blindfolding him before performing a sex act. Deborah Franklin, 65, who worked as a preparatory school in Herefordshire, in England, a part of England, was found guilty of 8 counts of gross indecency against the boy during the 1990s when he was between 9 and 12 years old. Let me put this again. When she worked as a preparatory school in Herefordshire, in England, a part of section out of England, was found guilty of 8 counts of gross indecency against the boy during the 1990s when he was between 9 and 12 years old. Franklin, who was in her 30s and married at the time. Let me repeat this. Franklin, this particular devious sexual perpetrator, pedophile, she's 65 now. She was in her 30s at that time and married. That tells you a lot about the guy. Became the boy's private tutor and reportedly subjected him to repeatedly sexual activity. Prosecutors alleged that she undressed in front of the boy teen, kissed him, made him touch her, and carried out multiple sexual acts at both his residence and hers. Boy, that's some devious stuff. Franklin of Ratlet, Herefordshire, denied the allegations occurred, claiming she had no recollection of tutoring the boy. Of course not. She had no recollection. But of course, if it's an underage teenage girl and she got with some grown male and 20, 30, 40 years later, oh my goodness, oh, she knows how to recollect then. Oh, there is no, oh my goodness, that was a long time ago, put it in the past. Now, they don't hear all that. You see the hypocrisy of that? She showed no emotion in the dock as the verdicts were delivered. And it just smells of demon aura. Ugh. It just smells of demon aura on that. Sexual pedophile pervert of a boy, teen. But they had a nerve to talk about, oh, those are some creepy males. When some males, he's grown and he got with some underage girl and he was a former teacher. He's a creepy pedophile. Oh, what about the creepy pedophile woman like this? These people. The defendant was remanded into custody, informed by this particular judge that she faces a high possibility of imprisonment of her sentencing on October 1st, 2026. The court was told that Franklin was a frequent presence at the complainant's home, with his sister describing the defendant to jurors. She was fun. She was charismatic. I thought she was cool. She was put on a facade. Creepy facade. The boy teen perceived her as young and high energy, who presented like a mate and discussed drugs, cigarettes, and ecstasy. The court was told. Victim was abused. In the 1990s, Franklin was trusted by the family to be alone with the boy in his room during the tutoring sessions. That in itself was creepy. Such and such prosecutor relayed. However, Franklin was a woman whose boundaries were just not there. The court was told that the defendant was once discovered by the complainant's sister beneath the covers in her brother's bed. What does that tell you? The accuser testified that one sexual incident occurred in the garage at his residence, where Franklin, the devious pedophile pervert, creepy woman, removed her clothing and asked, "Do you want to touch me?" Jurors were informed. During another instance at her own residence, Franklin tied him to her bed, blindfolded him, and tickled him. The complainant testified. The accuser stated that during another sexual act, Franklin called out her husband's name. Creepy. Jurors were told that the complainant alleged the defendant referred to himself as his girlfriend, but cautioned him to keep their relationship hidden from others, right? Deflection. He came forward in 2024, and I'm so beyond glad he did. There needs to be more males that come forward consistently. There needs to be boys young, and they were victims of these sexual predator, robbers, former teachers, former whoever related to certain women who were doing these things, right? They need to come forward. And again, if however politicalness, certain section of enforcement, certain section however personnel, organizations, anti-male organizations, however situations, if they sit there and try to minimize that, then they need to be called out for their behavior, because they're not going to do that in reverse. Do you understand? This is disgusting. Such and such judge, hold on, he testified that he had no memory of work ever being done during his tutoring sessions. The court was informed. Such and such judge delivering his legal instructions to the jury, noted that the prosecutor argued the accuser, now in his 40s, has consistently recounted the substance of the allegations over many years to many people. And interesting, if it's vice versa, they don't care about, he's a young teen, she was a young teen, and now she's in her 40s. They'd be like, look, that's understandable. Certain things she will forget, or certain things she might kind of add something in there that she's not trying to do that because he's trying to recall certain things. But the bread and butter of it is that she was a victim. Oh, they ain't gonna sit there and allow anything else to make sure, but that is brought up regardless, that she was a victim. The complaint initially reported the incident to police in 2024. The court, watch this, was told, the judge noted that the defense position was that Franklin's relationship with the boy was entirely proper and not unusually close and inappropriate. Now, you let that have been someone defense that did this and vice versa, and said that if it was a young girl, right, and she was sexually harassed by a grown man in his 30s, And the defense said, you know what? I mean, such and such, that guy's position, he relayed that, with the girl was entirely properly and not usually closed and inappropriate. Oh, man, they'd have been disbarred him. Do you understand? Oh, wrong. Franklin, or he'd have been all kind of ethics would have been brought against him or her if they try to minimize that. Franklin testifying in her defense informed jurors it was quite common for teachers and parents and children to socially interact. Okay, that's somewhere totally different. That's irrelevant. But then this person questioned her. Do you in fact remember the boy a good deal more than you are admitting to? The defendant replies, no. Such person questioned. You are still choosing not to remember anything that happened in those years, aren't you? The sexual pervert, English, particular former Anglo woman teacher out of Hertfordshire, reported no. Such a defense person relayed, asked the accuser if there was any truth in the allegation that she sexually touched the boy during the tutoring sessions. Franklin answered no. Of course she's going to say that. Franklin was found guilty of 8 counts of gross indecency. The accused informed jurors that it wouldn't have been unusual to be in a student's bedroom or on their bed while providing tutoring. Let me repeat this again. The accused informed jurors that it wouldn't have been unusual to be in a student's bedroom or on their bed while providing tutoring. Man, this psychology, there's some bad rap in certain parts of psychology, and there's some good things about psychology. But man, there needs to be more people study psychology, psychiatry, psychology, and any other mental situations, because that's fascinating. Where you can have people that in their mindset, they can rearrange their mentality and say the most illogical statements. Now, transform this again. The accused, now, let's say if this was a male in his 60s, right? Or he was in his 30s at that time, and a young girl was in her teens, and now he's in his 60s, and she's in her 40s, and he brought suit against her. No, she brought suit against him, and then he said, the accused informed jurors that it would have been unusual to be in a young girl's teen's bedroom or on their bed while providing tutoring. Do you know how they'd been like, man, you didn't get your out of here? Do you understand? Such and such person informed the court on Wednesday that Franklin was no longer working at the school and has been involved with the Royal Society for Protection of Birds charity prior to her conviction, and they have no clue. And how many of those women are just like them? They have no clue what's in their midst. Hertfordshire, such and such person relayed Franklin was charged under the Indecency with Children Act 1960, which was the applicable law when the offense occurred. The legislation was subsequently superseded by the Sexual Offenses Act of 2003. Her sentence is scheduled for October 1st, 2026. Wow. And that looks like that, and that looks like a honorableness, right? That looks like such a angelic being of a type of woman, and behind her and behind those evil eyes is a demon, a predatory demon. Do you understand? Where's all that? She looks creepy, Montserrat, like if it was vice versa, and a grown male did that to an underage girl. I mean, look what's going on with the Epstein situation, by the way. Oh my goodness. How many times you heard so many people talking about, oh my goodness, Epstein, I mean, look at this to the young girls. And I've done I think I did a podcast or two on that. What about the responsibility of the parents of parents, the facilitators who brought the little girls over there? Oh, and let's not be naive. Some people are very naive to this. What, you think there's no boys at all that was brought there? But let's just go with, with all these girls, young girls brought there. How did they get there? They didn't fly on a plane themselves. So they're parent of parents, non-black, going to be overall. No one applies to, right? Apparently flew over there with the young girls. Do you understand? But no accountability, responsibility. You haven't heard overall 9,000% of no kind of accountability of the parents who allowed those girls to go over there. Do you understand? Sickening. But it's a brilliancy of tactic. And it's funny how Epstein, right, which you know how what sectionality of a certain sectionality of a background is that from. If you say anything about certain people, they'll call you anti-Semitic. But it's interesting, the quietness. You don't hear that you anti-Semitic for talking about Epstein. Isn't that interesting? Woo! What's interesting? All right, that's all for that. So I thank you for tuning in. Wait a minute now. We're talking about women. Women. Oh my goodness. Oh man, men hate women. I'm not gonna play that little silly game, right? I'm not gonna play that. See, the people who know that, we all are naive on certain situations. Same time, there are just some things, unfortunately, there are numbers of some naive males relating to these type of situations. They keep putting these numbers of women on some angelic pedestal. In this situation right here, when this little sexual deviant, demon, pedophile, pervert, former teacher, Anglo woman teacher, English teacher over there, because English over there, for England, that version, from Herefordshire, that area, whatever that part that she was from, she was doing these little demon things with this little young boy. Pedophileness. And I am glad that he came forward. Let me say this again. I am glad he came forward. Regardless, there needs to be more males. Because the rarity of this, that these people, males are bringing forth these kind of things, 1990s, but at the same time, how many times you heard people jump over trains and planes jumping up and down? I want to hear something about a young girl. Oh, she was harassed, sexualist, whatever. She's in her teens, and now she's 40, 35, 50, 40. You get the point I'm getting at. Oh my goodness, she was a victim of some creepy guy, some pervert guy who did this to her. How many times have you heard that? Or even a grown woman, she's in her 20s. Now she's 50 to 60-some years old, or she's 40-some years old, 50, 60-some years old, bring some up that happened 20 years, 30, 40-some years plus. And she brings it up. At all this time, she didn't win her adulthood, right? Oh my goodness. She was a victim of a pervert, sexual harassing male, and people jump up and down going crazy. See the hypocrisy. So I'm glad this guy brought up that he was a victim by this sexual deviant pedophile pervert. Now, thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.